Welcome to the In Between podcast. I'm joined by Rickelle Tallent, a former competitive athlete turned sports dietitian and founder of Tallent Nutrition. Based in Las Vegas, Rickelle helps athletes and active individuals fuel for performance, recovery, and long-term health through a personalized, science-based approach. Her mission is to move people away from restrictive diets and towards sustainable habits that build strength, endurance, and confidence, both on and off the field. Welcome to the In Between podcast, Rickelle.
Hi, thank you.
I am so excited to take this conversation to the podcast. Rickelle and I met up at a coffee shop a couple weeks ago, and we talked about all the things, but one of the things that we really talked about was just wellness, nutrition. I told her a little bit about my journey in, training for a marathon. And one of the things that I want to start out with is I would love to hear from you, Rickelle, how you define an athlete.
Oh, that's a good one. I don't really necessarily define them as athletes. I think that's their prerogative. Some people identify as an athlete. Some I would say are, but they don't. So I think where I define something like that is more who could benefit from performance nutrition. And generally speaking, I would say if somebody is training several hours a week, especially at, a higher intensity, and or have goals related to some sort of athletic performance, even if they're maybe not like a high school or college or a pro athlete, but if they're wanting to do a race or if they're really focused on increasing strength and changing their body composition, some level of performance and recovery nutrition is likely going to be necessary for them to really see those goals through to their fullest potential. And then, of course, the more hours they're spending in training, if they are competing, the level of nutrition support needed is going to be greater.
I love that definition because I think one of the things we've chatted about a few times is just that people identify themselves as athletes when they're in high school, when they're in college, maybe, obviously, if they are a paid athlete. But how would our world change if we all identified in some level as an athlete, right? Because if you think about an athlete, they're training, they're talking and thinking about their nutrition. And if we all did that as entrepreneurs, as just normal people, how much of a healthier culture would we have?
Yeah. And I like to too, like for performance, yes, of course, if you're a competitive athlete, we're thinking of your performance on the field or the ice, wherever it may be. But even as entrepreneurs, and especially as active entrepreneurs, I mean, your mental performance is a thing too, and your nutrition certainly affects your mental performance. So if you really just want to perform at your highest level, whether it's in your fitness endeavors, athletic endeavors, or just your mental performance, nutrition's got to be something that you think about.
Yeah. So let's go back. I would love to hear your story about how, one, this became a passion for you, and two, your journey to being a business owner, because I feel like you didn't make this decision right away where you're like, okay, I'm going to be a dietitian, I'm going to own my own business. You had a lot of peaks and valleys through it. So could you tell us that story?
Yeah, it's a long one. It's like evolving over, 20 years now almost. Yeah, so I started, like my first degree was psychology. It had nothing to do with nutrition. I really enjoyed it, but I would say I was more of a very young adult who didn't really know what she wanted to do. So I did really well in school. I found what I was learning enjoyable, but I was also just it was like near-sighted vision where it was like, I just want to make really good money and I like this certain lifestyle. And, when I graduated and then started looking at like, oh, the PhD program, at the time, I'm like, how do you expect me to live off $1,000 a month? Which is hard, but at that time, it really would. I could have totally done it. It's not like I had a family or kids or didn't have any support at all. But it was, when you're working in the food and beverage industry or hotel industry in Las Vegas, I could make that in a week working 3 days at most, So it was one of those like, at the time, it just seemed like, why would I do that?
What did I do? Yeah.
you know? But then fast forward, 5 or so years, and the glamour definitely wears off and it gets to you, at least for me, not everybody, but I was miserable, absolutely hated it. And then was kind of going back to, okay, do I want to do law school? Do I want to do my MBA? Like, what do I want to do? And my dad passed away, and I found myself really interested in health all of a sudden. Just like there were shows on TV at the time, and I was watching them a lot. And I don't know, I just became very drawn to it. So I was like, you know what? I have some friends who are PAs. Like maybe I'll go that route. Did a little shadowing, decided like, yes, I'm going to do this, but I need some biologies and chemistries that I didn't get with my psychology degree. So I'm going to go get those out of the way and then I'll go to school. When I got there, I realized like I couldn't register for any of those classes. They were already full. But I noticed because I already had a degree from UNLV, if I declared a major, I could register as a senior because I had all those credits. So I like, okay, well, obviously that's what I need to do. So I scroll through the list and I saw nutrition on there and I'm like, I have no idea what you would do with a nutrition degree. Like I had no clue that a dietitian even existed, had never heard the word. But I'm like, I was a foodie. Like I really like food and I had been I made a lot of healthy changes in my lifestyle and eating habits in those recent years. So I'm like, okay, I'll just declare this. I don't have to do it. I'll just take the classes I need and then move on. And then, so I did it and I got in those classes and I realized one, it was eye opening because I never thought of nutrition as far as like diseases and stuff like that. So it's, I was learning a lot and how it like, impacts us in way more than I realized. But I also realized I was really good at it and in the biology classes. So in my mind, I was thinking, I might stick with this nutrition degree because it was a pre-med route. So it was the same science classes anyways. And like it could, but I feel like this information could really help me be even better in the medical field. So that was the new plan. And then I got pregnant unexpectedly. Everyone was like, yeah, I don't know if I want to be passing my baby off during residency because our pediatrician, her and her husband are both doctors. And she said that's what they actually did when they had their daughters. Like one would be getting off from a 12-hour shift and they basically swap and one would take the kid and the other one went to their 12-hour shift. And I was just like, I don't know if that's the life I want or that I want with the baby. So there went med school idea. And long story short, I ended up sticking with the nutrition sciences degree and became a dietitian. So that was the start of it.
I love it. And did you grow to understand and develop a passion for nutrition when you started to take all those classes?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. Thankfully, I liked it a lot because, or else I would have been like, well, crap, what am I going to do now? So like it definitely helped that I saw a need for it and I realized how important it was and I really enjoyed it and felt like I could still make a really big impact. I do kind of wish lately, like the last few years probably, that I maybe would have done PA school also. So not in place of being a dietitian, but almost like a combination of the two, only because I feel like I spend so much time analyzing people's labs or recommending what labs people should get. And then, I am limited when those lab results come back. I can't diagnose people with a medical condition. I can't do a treatment outside of a nutrition or a lifestyle, intervention. And a lot of people are just not getting what they need, unfortunately. And I feel like I'm pretty good at it at this point. So there have been times in recent years where I'm like, God, I wish I could do more and it not be out of my scope of practice.
Yeah, I could see that where the line is like, oh, it's right there and I know what I need to do, but I can't do it. Yeah. So where did you become passionate about performance athletes and really narrowing? I mean, I know you see a range of people from our discussion, but your business, you really enjoy working with, the people who are passionate about their health and their wellness. And where did you find that to be kind of your niche for the business?
Yeah, I think when I first graduated, I sports nutrition was going to be my fun nutrition. Like at
Yeah.
the time I saw the diabetes or even thyroid disease, stuff like that as more my serious work. And then the performance would be my fun work. But
Yeah.
then when I start my first year as a dietitian, most of those patients were not all of them are really old, but they were older, a lot of health conditions. So like more serious stuff. But when I would do their first, the initial assessment, I would realize that some of them were former athletes, like some were high school, college, even some pro. And at first, I remember thinking, like, how did we go from that to where they are now? And, some of them where they were now was I can't even take a 5-minute walk because I'm either so short of breath or I have that bad of knee pain. I'm that overweight. I mean, so we're talking like really bad condition. And I'm like, wait, 10 years ago, sometimes you were a high school athlete and now you're this. Or 20 years ago, you were a professional athlete and now you're here. And I'm like, what happened? So I started really thinking back to like when I was younger and still an athlete and my friends that were an athlete. And I'm like, you know what? The girls, it was always, we wanted to be skinnier. It was all about being skinny. I never once had anyone talk about nutrition related to performance or even muscle or anything like that. And then with the boys, it was the opposite. It was like, oh, eat whatever you want because you're an athlete. You need the calories. So they never learned healthy habits either. They just ate literally whatever they want and as much as they could. Well, once you retire from sport, whether that's at 18 or 23 or 40, you can't do that anymore, right? Like you have to have some sort of healthy habits in place or you're going to end up in a pretty bad spot. And for the girls, now we have years of under eating or, restricted binge cycles and that, 10, 20, 30 years down the road, that doesn't serve us well at all. So people end up a mess. And then that's when I started realizing like, oh, wait, the sports performance nutrition, it isn't all fun. It is still really fun sometimes, but there's a lot more seriousness to it than just the performance side of things, right? Like establishing healthy habits and teaching people how to eat, especially when they're younger, it sets them up for success years down the road. And it prevents a lot of the complications that we see in so many people now, at least in our country.
Yeah. I could imagine that, and I'm not a parent, but I'm just imagining this. As a parent, you think you're doing such a good thing in getting your kids in a sport where they have these mentors and you think they're learning how to take care of their bodies and fuel themselves. And then these kind of facts that you're talking about come out and it's like, wow, what a disservice that at such a young age we're almost taking away the opportunity to be educated about food and hydration and all of those things. Can you talk about what you've seen as far as, obviously, this is your profession, but you also have kids who are super active and in sports and how that has really changed I feel like a lot of your passion has grown into educating these kids from a young age.
Yeah. Yeah. Because unfortunately, they're on the good side of things. Nutrition does at least get talked about now. When I was in high school, I truly don't remember it ever coming up except for dieting, right? Like we weren't taught it at all. So it's definitely more of a focus now, even with the middle school and high school kids. But the downside is sometimes we still see a lot of like old school thinking about things and it's just very inaccurate. And most likely it was taught to them by their coaches. And now they're just continuing to teach kids these things that are sometimes actually very harmful. I think they mean well, but they just don't know what they're talking about. So there are still a lot of issues. Some of the biggest ones I see still so like gymnastics or dance, anything where physique is a focus. You still get a lot of like nothing but water allowed in the gym or the studio, but you've got these athletes train 4 or 5 hours a day. And when they're students, it's usually after school. I mean, that's a long time to go. And that is horrible for the overall health, but also for performance to just have water for 4 or 5 hours. So that's still, unfortunately, a thing. With with the other athletes, a lot of times you just get, now social media is so prevalent. So you get all these crazy things. I mean, it could be fasting, it could be no carbs, it could be supplements, it could be, there's so many different things that these kids and even adults see now. So they're trying it, and the people tend to have no healthcare credentials whatsoever, or anything that where they should be providing this type of recommendation. But so we're constantly battling that. So, it's a lot of like, well, should I not eat in the morning, or should I do a fast, or do I need to stop eating at a certain time, or should I be avoiding carbs, seed oil, the popular one now, fats? Like, there's just so many different things. And it causes a lot of stress because it gets confusing, like this person's telling you this and this person's telling you this, and then we don't know what to eat, or we're scared to eat anything.
Yeah, you don't know what to believe. And there's always a new trending thing. Like last year, I feel like it was protein. Now we're talking about fiber. But, society becomes obsessed with these one things. And it's like, okay, well, you shouldn't also just be eating protein all day, right? Like, the education is so mixed, and I would assume it's very difficult in your profession to then have to be like, hey, we have to go back to the books. Protein is great, but so are these other things.
Yeah, protein's a big one lately. And it's for some people, the problem is, well, yes, you do need quite a bit of protein, but you also need a lot of carbs. And then there's some people who they do need the protein, but proteins become this magic bullet, even for like weight loss for people who aren't active. So now some people are actually gaining weight because they're overdoing it with the protein, because they just think, well, more protein will make me lose weight. But at the end of the day, if your extra protein makes you consume more calories than you burn, it ends up just being fat. So it's, yeah, people
There's
don't
a myth
seem to have a
bust.
concept of like how much they need. It's just like, okay, let's just start dumping protein in everything. And that can be really problematic if it's more than what you actually need.
Yeah. Well, and that's a whole other topic of conversation of like, okay, I'm just going to buy this protein powder because then I can get more protein. But it's filled with all these other things that your body really doesn't need. And I know we touched a little bit on our last conversation about supplements and just how, I mean, the industry is pushing supplements down our throat that we don't even know if we need. And you had chatted with me a little bit about, when you look at someone's blood work and really identifying what they actually need. And it's so different for each person, right?
Oh, very. I wish supplements weren't even able to just be purchased commercially anymore, especially high dose supplement, of certain supplements. Not because I don't want people to be able to, make choices for themselves, but I've seen so many times now where it's caused harm because, again, people just don't, like COVID, right? The zinc, everyone, like so many people were taking high dose zinc, but then they kept taking it, and that can be problematic down the road, and they just don't know. So it's dangerous. I'm like,
Well,
why is
and
this
I mean,
available to people? Like,
we should be asking ourselves, why can't we get it through our food first?
well, yeah, it's food first. And then if you need a little, like sometimes people do for one reason or another, but really should be monitored. Like, I don't even like to make supplement recommendations without seeing certain lab, just because I want to make sure that nothing in their blood work would identify like, okay, this would actually be problematic for them. Or maybe it identifies, hey, they actually need more than your typical person would, even if it's for, 3 or 6 months only. So this small dose isn't even going to be effective for them. So we need to do this, but we have to monitor and adjust and continuously do that until we fix the problem and find what keeps them at maintenance.
Yes. I want to switch over to talking about the performance side, specifically with your business owners, specifically with your, high achievers who are maybe they've started to take care of themselves. They started to go to the gym, but they're really trying to optimize their mindset, their mental health, all those things. What are some functional, like baseline habits that you would suggest them implementing to improve energy, recovery, maybe some brain fog and things like that?
Yeah, I think, and of course, assuming, everything's normal with lab works and health, my first, generally speaking, I have my step process.
Yep.
And the first one is making sure you're not skipping meals. So that means eating breakfast because it's so common that we don't. So, getting used to having 3 meals per day at relatively similar times per day, that helps keep your blood sugar stable. And it also helps prevent you from crashing energetically and can prevent overeating later in the day. A lot of people end up so hungry later on. And when you are starving, you are not likely to make good nutrition decisions. I wouldn't either. It's just it's our hormone. So not letting yourself get to that point is really helpful if you're trying to have consistent, healthy eating habits. So I usually start first with just simply making sure people are eating enough throughout the day. If some of those meals are spaced, 6+ hours apart, then I would add in a snack between those meals. So for a lot of people, it ends up looking like 3 meals and a snack per day. But some people do better with more like 3 smaller meals and 3 snacks. So at that point, it depends on what their meals look like and what their needs are too. So if they're really active and they have higher needs, sometimes we have to add in more snacks for them to be able to achieve those. Beyond the timing of the meals and just making sure you're eating enough, it would be balanced meals. So making sure you're not skipping out on any macronutrient group. So that includes like fiber-rich carbs and lean proteins and color. So the fruits and or vegetables, because that helps you get the nutrients you need, but it also helps you maintain a stable energy level, stable blood sugar, stable mood. So all of those things are, of course, going to affect the way you perform. So those are almost always my first 3. And then we get into more the nitty gritty things and swapping things out. Occasionally, though, someone might be like substantially underhydrated. So maybe we focus on that first. Or maybe someone is having excess alcohol and it's really affecting their sleep, their recovery, so many things in their life. We might prioritize that. So there is some, times where maybe those aren't my first 3, but almost always those are going to be the top 3 that I will start with for people.
Yeah. So you bring up alcohol, which is another question I had regarding eating out. Obviously, we both live in Las Vegas, so we have wonderful restaurants here. And I think a lot of people love to enjoy a night out with their family or their friends. What is the advice that you offer your clients when they have these goals and they're trying to, whatever the goal is? Maybe they're just trying to eat healthier, sustain long-term habits. Maybe it is a fitness goal. What are some tricks or tips that you have when you're eating out? Because it's so hard. Obviously, our food is cooked poorly and probably covered in butter and oil and all the things, but it's also like a decision, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think first it depends too, like why people are dining out. So if it's just the occasional for fun with your family, maybe it's once a week, then we just kind of will talk about that more. And I'll come back to that too. Some people, though, it's more of an issue of they're just not prepared. So they're constantly going out to eat or even getting takeout, not so much for the social aspect, but because that's their food, because they don't have anything at home. So depending what the reasoning is, if it's just not being prepared, then that's the first thing we have to focus on, because the unfortunate reality coming from someone who does love to try new restaurants and stuff, it's really hard to meet your goal if you're constantly dining out for whatever reason. So usually I would encourage people like, let's practice planning and let's get some easy meals, even if you're not cooking. Maybe we're grabbing a rotisserie chicken from somewhere and some frozen, but We can get easy things that you don't even really have to cook necessarily. But let's start working on those so that you're not dining out as often. And then when you do dine out, when it's once or twice a week, now there's things we can do to where it's not going to completely crush your goal when you do it. So like one of the things I like to tell people is to still plan around those nights. So if let's say Friday night is your night with your friends or your date night or whatever it might be, well, the rest of the week and especially that day, how can we eat in a way that kind of is maybe it's lighter? So if it's pizza on Fridays, well, let's watch the saturated fat during the day because we know the pizza is just heavier. It's going to give you a lot more fat. So maybe during the day, we focus a lot more on lean proteins and vegetables and maybe some fruits, so you eat around those meals so that you're still not going completely overboard when you do have them. Another thing is like is mindful eating, even though you're dining out. So if you have the ability to box it up and take some to go, like don't feel the need to eat the entire thing. You can always take your leftovers. So then you can enjoy it, but you also didn't overeat or go crazy. If there's times where I can't take leftovers, I'm someone who I just feel bad wasting food. So I don't like leaving all this food on my plate anyway. So usually if I know I can't go home, I'll order off like the appetizer menu, or I'll just give a small plate, or I'll share with somebody. Because then it's like, well, I can enjoy it, but I'm not going to feel the need to eat this huge portion because we all know the portions in most places are huge.
Yeah.
And then choosing things at the restaurant. A lot of restaurants have decent options nowadays. So it's like you don't have to choose the highest fat food in there all the time, right? Like there's some pretty good things now that are very reasonable as far as calories and balance. They give you some carbs, some protein, even some vegetables. So learning to make better decisions when you do go out most of the time is going to be helpful long term.
Yeah. I think definitely in Vegas, we now have a couple restaurants that are definitely more health-based, which I like to more plan my social events around somewhere that I know is like a little bit healthier. But I agree. I think when I first started looking at my nutrition, I tried to identify like the typical proteins that would be on a menu that I could get that would also align with like whatever I was at that time tracking macros, whatever would fit that macro. So like a salmon or a chicken or even a steak if that's what I was craving. But I tend to love to lean on like the salmons or the chicken breast meals. And, those are something that you can pretty much find on every menu, I would say. And then, if for some reason it's not a vegetable, you can always add it as a side.
Yeah, exactly. And it's okay once in a while too. I like people to understand that if you have one meal that doesn't have vegetables, you're not going to die. It's
Well,
okay.
sweet potato fries are a vegetable. So that's a cheat code if anyone needed it.
You're like, I got my vegetable and my carbs.
Exactly. It was somehow in there. I'm addicted right now to, have you been to Flower Child?
I have not. I've looked at their menu several times because I have so many clients that eat, but I've never ate there.
It's so delicious. And they have, their broccoli is incredible. I'm not a huge vegetable girl, I'll be honest, but their broccoli, they put like this Parmesan thing on it. It's so good. So I usually they have like a plate that you make. So you choose a protein and then two sides. So I get their salmon's incredible. I'll get the broccoli and then I'll get the sweet potato fries. And their sweet potato fries, oh my gosh, incredible. And they're cooked very basic. It's like sea salt. So I highly recommend Flower Child. But that's one of my hacks. I try to like, if you identify the meat. And the other thing that I would do when I was I don't want to use the word strict, but I was really trying to achieve a goal, right? Like I wanted to have certain results and I needed to stay within some lines. Look at the menu before you go. This is like lifesaver. Anytime I was going out with my family, whatever I was doing, I preset the menu and I already knew what I was ordering before I walked in. And it's so much better because you're not sitting there thinking about what everyone else is getting and how you're going to do it. It's like, I already made my decision. It's also, if you are tracking macros, you can put it into your app and then know, okay, what I need to do for the rest of the day. That was something also, and most restaurants put out, and then if they don't, there's usually some blogs that kind of guess for you. So you can get a roundabout number of like, okay, this is how many calories or protein is in this meal, even though it's not from home.
Yeah. Yeah. I always look at the menus beforehand because I like, and sometimes too, you go and you're talking so much and then it
You're like,
takes
oh, wait,
forever to order because you're like, oh, I haven't looked at the menu. So when you
yes.
look at the menu first, not only do you already have, a good plan in place, but now you can also talk and enjoy and you're like, I already know what I want. So you're good. But yeah, I like that helps with traveling too. So a lot of
Mm.
my, in it, sometimes it's, traveling for work or for leisure. Sometimes it's traveling for sport. So what we're looking for can vary, but having an idea of what's around you and
Mm-hmm.
what's available really helps you to stay on track because okay, I've got these three options near me, so you can plan on going there. Or if there's a store near you and you're going to have a fridge or a microwave, you can, okay, I'm going to go get these things, or I'm going to bring these things with me as snacks because I won't have them. So it really, I don't know, I'm a huge proponent of having a plan, whether it's
Yeah.
for dining out, for traveling, for meal prep, whatever it might be. Like the more prepared you are, the easier you're making it on yourself to be consistent with your choices.
And if you are in that moment, I think for me, I always try to just, okay, if these are my three options and it's like McDonald's, In-N-Out, Chipotle, I'm like, okay, I can decide what's the best option out of all of that, right? And like,
Yep.
that's what I have. But I think you bring up a great point with grocery stores because sometimes if I'm in a pickle and I didn't prepare, I will totally stop at a grocery store and get, a protein bar or an apple instead of stopping at McDonald's and getting some fries. Like, it's a little more work. You got to walk in there, but you
Yeah.
can get a snack and it not be like this earth shattering moment where you're like, oh, I was starving. I had to stop here. And
Yeah.
even your local Starbucks, like they have protein bars now, they have hard boiled eggs. Like there are better choices popping up. But the key is you have to be able to choose and make that choice for yourself.
Yeah. Starbucks has a lot of good, their blueberry oatmeal's great. Their turkey bacon, I did that. My kid had a lacrosse tournament Saturday and Sunday. So, it was like, okay, where can I go that's somewhat quick? It has decent options. And that was both days. I ended up doing that because they do have several decent options. And if there's a Whole Foods by you, they've got their salad bar, their deli, but even a lot of the local, just kind of, I guess you could say, typical grocery stores now have like either little salad bowls or little kind of like bento box looking
Yeah.
things where, they're good options. And even if they're not ideal, it's okay. Like, sometimes you just have to do the best with what you're working with and move on.
Yeah. And you mentioned preparation and planning, and that's something for me that I've done a lot too is Sundays now my routine is that I meal prep lunches for the week. And last week I had got back from vacation on a Sunday, so I didn't have time to do it. And all week I'm like, what do I eat? What do I do? Like trying to make
Right.
the choice felt so exhausting because I'm so used to now like 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, I just go grab my lunch out of the fridge. And it's like, I work from home, right? I could sit here and make my whole meal, but it's a convenience thing. And now if I go to my sister's house or if I'm somewhere at 12, I already have my lunch. I don't have to think about it. And I am someone who loves to repeat meals. I know that's not everybody, but I find something I love. I've been making the same meal for probably the last month. It is the same every day, but I love it. And it hits everything I need. Sometimes I'll mix it up and add avocado or a vegetable, but truly meal prep, it sucks in the moment. I always say that, but every day during the week, I'm like, thank goodness I did this.
Yeah, I said the same thing. You're gonna put the time in up front, and it's not like I I don't love spending 2 hours in the kitchen necessarily, but the whole rest of the week it is so much easier. So it's like, yeah, harder, put in my time, and then it's good. So, or you cannot put in the time, but you're gonna struggle. I can't think of many, if any, people where they were always winging it and were really successful.
Yeah. I
So
saw
it,
influencer that I follow on Instagram, and she came up with this hack where she puts into ChatGPT her, like, she's like, make meals, 5 meals for the week. It makes the meals, and then she'll even put in like what food she has left over from the past week. It will create the meals, and then she has it create a grocery list by section in the grocery store. So she could easily know where to go and what to get. And she does it every week, and that's how she rotates meals. And it's become like very easy for her to just know exactly what she's doing. And I thought that was a great tip too, because it's like, AI is around here and we have it. So leverage it in a way that takes some load off of you, not having to sift through recipes or think about, okay, how can I make it healthy? Because really AI could do that for you.
Yeah, usually use it
Yeah.
with caution though, because I have a meal planning app that I use and it
Yeah.
does all those things, but more accurately because it's been programmed. Like it was designed to do all these things. But
Yeah.
the AI, I think if it's just you just want meal ideas and you don't need anything too specific, it's a great tool. But if you want like very specific macros, or sometimes even if you have like allergies or you need certain avoidances, I don't know why, but you will get, I've done it, played around with it, and it has discrepancies. So it's the more specific you need, I say use with caution, just because it isn't always accurate. And I don't think everyone would pick up on that right away.
Yep.
But yeah, for general meal plan, like just I would want good recipes that are healthy and stuff like that, then I think it could be a really helpful tool to use.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's good to know. And I think for sure everyone in the family has their own goals and their specific things that they're looking for. And I'm someone who likes to at least weigh out certain protein and things like that. So I'm aware of how many ounces I'm getting. And so oftentimes, like, my family will make all things separately and we kind of just go and choose and pick what we need. But I think for a recipe standpoint, yeah, you're absolutely right. It gives you some variety because you don't want to be repeating things all the time.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting though, because even I work part-time for a telehealth company, and
Yeah.
for their journal side of things and like meal planning side of things, they utilize AI. And so that's how I know, like, it's even through an actual telehealth company, like the AI side of things, it doesn't, there's a lot of issues with it. So like for people, again, that really want the specific numbers and stuff like that, then I take them over to a tracker that I know is more accurate, or like a meal planning software that is more accurate. But yeah, it depends. Some people, it's perfectly fine. Like we're
Yeah.
really just looking at patterns for the logging, not the macros. Or,
Well, it's interesting too,
you
because I know, so I use my Fitness Pal for anytime I'm tracking macros, and they just added a feature where you can take a picture of your meal and it will tell you the macros. And I was like, how is this possible? Because I just feel like it can't possibly be accurate. And I tried it for a day and it was in a little bit of a range, but I think if I was strictly really trying to hit goals, that version wouldn't work. Like, I need to get the scale out and I need to be weighing things because it's just enough over or under that, as you know, that can affect what your goals are and how you're achieving them.
yeah, I think a lot of the apps now have that. And again, for some people, it's great. They're giving them what they want. They don't want to have to like search and some people they want the least amount of time they can give.
Yep.
So that does it for them. But there's a trade-off between accuracy and convenience sometimes. And so I guess it depends which one you just want more.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked a little bit about the role of mindset in what you do when we chatted with coffee. And I wanted to talk about that again because I think there's so many different mindsets that get attached to food and get attached to, like you mentioned, being smaller or whatever the quote unquote goal is. How often do you see mindset coming up in what you do with nutrition?
Oh, probably 95% of the time. There's always almost always some component. Some of where they're really just, they're healthy, they're younger, they just want performance nutrition. occasionally I'll get some where there really aren't any mindset issues or blocks, and that's great. It's really it's a lot easier, but those are kind of few and far between. With weight loss, especially when someone really is obese or you know clinically overweight. There's oftentimes a psychological component involved there, and it can be as to why they've gotten to that point, or it can come into why they know what to do but don't do it. So there's a lot of times I actually recommend working simultaneously with a therapist
Mm.
because I've had some people, they ended up even getting diagnosed with binge eating disorder. And that is definitely not that goes beyond my scope when it comes to the psychological side of things. So they uncovered that working with the therapist, and then the therapist is helping to treat that, and then I'm helping with the more nutritional side of things. But even when it's not actually binge eating disorder, there's still a lot of times an emotional component to why people choose to overeat or eat things that they know aren't in alignment with their goals or that are bad for their health, or why they end up binging or they're using food as a coping mechanism, which, again, just kind of feeds the cycle. So it's so often there's a mindset issue with the weight loss side of things or obesity. But even with people who that's not the problem, there is still a lot of, then it comes more, not orthorexic, but those kind of mindset issues where these foods are bad and these foods are good, or these foods I have to completely avoid and stuff like that. So they're not trying to lose weight necessarily, but they just have a lot of fear around so many food components that it's not just affecting their health, but now it's causing them stress and affecting their other parts of their life as well. So yeah, I'd have to go back and really sort that data out, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's probably like 95%. It comes into play somehow.
Yeah. Why do you think that our looks and food and all of these things we're discussing are so attached to like our belief systems? I feel like as a society and culture, we've really like, for some reason, attached food and how we look and all of these things together, that we don't do that with other things.
Yeah, I mean, I think this started before we were even born. I mean, even me, you're a little younger than I am, but it's something that I think started in my mom's lifetime, and I don't really know why, but I think we are just fed, even subconsciously, from so many different angles that the way you like being overweight is a bad thing, and that food is what makes you overweight. And so therefore, if you're eating these foods or if you're eating too much of foods, it's like it makes you almost like less than, and I don't think that's true, but I just think that is what we get fed from social media and television and but even words. I mean, even my kid, they'll use the word fat, and I don't like it because I don't want them to. One, I don't want them to hurt people's feelings, but two, I don't want them judging people that they don't even know, because I'm like, you can't tell that person's habits just based off what they look like. I know this, but they're young and they even say certain things, and they don't pick it up from home, so it's got to come from school or sports. So it seems like the way so many people think, that I feel like it's just the norm for people now. And it's unfortunate because you really can't always how healthy a person is by the way they look. Like, I know some people who make terrible nutrition choices and lifestyle choices too, and they're very thin. So they don't get, like, people don't think that. And I know people who are not very thin and they actually live a very healthy lifestyle. So it's really, you can't just judge people based off of how they look.
Yeah, absolutely. If someone is in an in-between moment with their performance, their nutrition, and, they're really trying to learn more, maybe potentially work with someone like you. What advice would you give them in that in-between moment?
I think I would say start sooner rather than later. I don't think it's ever too late to make a good choice or to turn things around. But when it comes to nutrition and especially your health, there is a cumulative effect. So the longer we go without caring or without taking action, you do risk certain things, sometimes not being able to be reversed or being harder to reverse. So I don't think it's ever a bad time to start caring about your nutrition and your health. And the sooner you start, the more likely you are to prevent complications, further in your life, whether that's a year from now or 10 years from now. You're doing yourself a favor by starting before the problems become serious. So I like to tell people, try to be proactive rather than reactive, because it really is just a lot easier to prevent than it is to treat or reverse.
I love that. Proactive versus reactive. That's good.
Yeah. And we tend to be reactive, and we don't want to spend our money and our time on something that isn't a problem.
Yeah.
But
and
then they become a problem.
No matter how much you practice it, it's still just, we're trained to be reactive and say yes to whatever we want as individuals.
Yeah, that's kind of seems how our culture has become as well. But yeah, and I would say the same thing. Even if tomorrow I was like, I'm done, I'm retired, I would still tell people that, because it really, and you just feel so bad when these things start all crumbling down. I can't, I wish people could see what I've seen when it gets to the extreme, because whether it's autoimmune disease or something like diabetes or nutrient deficiencies, any of these things, it's completely debilitating. You won't be training anymore. You won't be working out. Sometimes you're not even working. Like, some of the patients I have are on disability now because they truly can't function. They can't hold down a job anymore because they're so impaired. And it's really sad, because some of these people were very high level, executives or high level athletes. And it's, now they can't even get through the day without being fatigued or in a lot of pain. They can't work. So I just wish I wish people could see what happens when you don't care earlier on, because it truly can be completely devastating to your life and debilitating.
Well, thank you so much, Rickelle, for the work you're doing. I know it probably seems like you're a drop in the bucket compared to this big world and all these big things that are going on and the decisions that people make every single day, but you are making a difference. You are educating people. And I think that's the most important thing, is the more education we have, hopefully we can make better decisions. I would love for you to share with my audience, if they're interested in learning more about working with you and your offers. I know you have several new things coming out here soon, where they could find you and potentially book a consultation.
Yeah. So there's my website, tallentnutrition.com, and that would just give you a little more insight about me and what we have at Tallent Nutrition. On Instagram, it's at Tallent Nutrition. I can send you my links too if it's easier, but I have private nutrition coaching. There are some cash pay programs, but then I also have an insurance side of things. So if you book a free call with me, we can see what you need and what would be best for you. And then I can, give you the link to sign up for whichever option that is. And then I do have some meal planning services for people who maybe don't need any sort of coaching, but they just want to make their lives easier and have access to a bunch of different recipes that fit their nutrition prescriptions. There's that. And then I have my online courses that I'm just launching. They are geared more towards athletes, but as we said earlier, that does not mean you have to be a high-level athlete or a high school or college athlete. So if you're active and you're looking to build muscle and do it in a safe, effective way, and you just really want good energy. You don't want your training to make you feel fatigued or like your muscles are sore for days and, you just want to feel good while you're doing it all. These courses would still benefit you. So yes, they use the word athletes, but if you're really active and you have any sort of performance goal,
Exactly.
I would say they would likely benefit you as well. So yeah, the best thing is probably just to message me and schedule a free call, and then we can see what your goals are and which options would be the best fit for you.
Perfect. Well, we will include all those links into the show notes so you guys can reach out to Rickelle if you're interested in learning more about working with her. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining us, Rickelle, and we'll catch you next time on the In Between podcast.